Kyle Klingman with Track Wrestling. We have Andy Voit, 3-time All-American for Penn State. Now he is a pilot for United. He was going to be part of the Takedown Cancer event that we were going to collaborate with J-Rob camps and Track Wrestling. Of course, the NCAA Championships in 2020 got canceled, but look forward to talking about a battle against cancer that we all can go against. But Andy, appreciate this time.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me, Kyle.
Bum deal with the that Takedown Cancer getting canceled with J-Rob camps and Track Wrestling. You were a part of that. Why is that such a passionate cause for you?
Well, I think like most people, I have family members who passed away with cancer, struggled with it throughout their life. My father, my grandmother, and when you look around a room, it's just about everybody has someone who they know who's had that struggle, or a situation where they lost a close family member. So it impacts just about everybody, and it's one of those giving back kind of things in wrestling. We're fortunate to have we started the charity about 7-8 years ago, and just a group of guys who said, we don't want anything from this. We're just going to give to it. Don't expect anything in return. No salaries. And what that gives the organization is a very high level of efficiency. So when you look at other cancer charities that maybe have quite a few employees, they're paying a lot of salaries and so forth. So you don't have that slippage with Takedown Cancer. It's about a 92% efficiency rate there. So your money is actually going to get to where it's intended. Most of the money goes to the Masonic Cancer Research Center at the University of Minnesota. If they find a cure there, it goes out to everywhere. So it's not a regional kind of thing where it would only be harbored in that state. It's going to go out everywhere. And they have actually, the researchers have found cures along the way. And they're doing great work. These people have a passion for it. They work at it all day. Genius level researchers working on this stuff. And it's making a difference.
You live in the Twin Cities area, J-Rob camps, Jay Robinson. I'm assuming you have a pretty good relationship with the former Minnesota coach, Jay Robinson.
Well, Jay, the first time I met Jay, I met him, he didn't meet me. So that was 1981. I went to his camp. It was called the Iowa Intensive Camp back then. And, I was this chubby kid who the year prior had a 0-7-1 record. I started wrestling late in 7th grade. And not a lot of success. People were not looking at me going, this kid's going to be something someday. It wasn't like that at all. And that camp really was pivotal in turning that around, showing me a new work level, new limits on what my body could do, just that daily discipline, the goal setting just really changed everything. So then from there I could apply that work ethic every day. You start adding those days up, and it can start to become something. If nothing else, it's the best you can be. And we all have different genetic profiles, I guess, but I thought that really was a pivotal point for me in wrestling. Without him, I don't know, without that camp and the way it was structured, I don't know if I would have wrestled in college. I don't know that I would have even went to college, actually, because I kind of didn't have a real good direction in my life and at that point. So just a game changer for me.
What did it do? It's interesting to hear that, because it sounds like a turning point moment for you. So when you go through that and you come out the other end, you have a finite period of time. I'm assuming it was a 28-day camp. So you have 28 days, and that alters the trajectory of your life. How did it do it?
Actually, I went to the 14-day camp. It was in Lock Haven, Pennsylvania. I think there's a couple things that happen. One is just teaching different principles, that what he would call the J7: commitment, sacrifice, dedication, discipline. Service was one of them. And that's kind of interesting because here we are after all this time working on a charitable event, which is service to giving back to wrestling, But I think there's another factor would be just seeing firsthand those high-level wrestlers and being mixed in with them at the camp. When you're, say, 8th, 9th grade, that leaves an impression on you. It's people that you can look at and say, I want to be like him. That guy's cool. And so there was a lot of that in there as well. And just, I remember, I think it was the second day of camp, I lost my keys. And they found, one of the counselors found them. And he said, this was so foreign to me at the time. If you want your keys back, you have to do some push-ups. And he asked me, he said, how many, it was, the counselor was John Glenn, by the way. John Glenn, last name Glenn. And how many push-ups can you do? And I said, 30, I think 30 maybe. He said, okay, 60 and you can have your keys back. And somehow I managed to do 60 push-ups and I was just astounded myself. So anyway, it was that constant effort to kind of raise the bar as to what we thought we could do psychologically. The camp is designed to break us down, break the campers down throughout the process, so that when they come out the other end, they had at one point thought that there was no way they were going to get through it. And yet you do, and you learn something from that too. And I felt so strongly about that camp that when I was coaching, we had set up some scholarships, and we sent probably about 50 of the high school kids through that camp, so that they could learn from it as well.
When you go to Penn State, you become a 3-time All-American. But if you reference back what you just said, that you had a disastrous, as far as record, 7th grade year, how do you make a turn so that you become an All-American in Division I, which is an incredible accomplishment? You did it 3 times.
Yeah, just had, I think most of it was with that turning point, and then having some great coaches in high school. I mean, I was just blessed to have Mel Riddick and Tony Phillips and Jerry Heist as my coaches in high school. Kept me going along, moving along. And then my brother, I had an older brother, Ralph, who helped me quite a bit. And then I went to another camp. My parents were really good about spending money on educational type things. We were just middle class, but when it came to educational type things, they were very generous with their spending. And so I went to the Penn State camp, and there I got to meet John Fritz, just a bundle of energy and positivity. I got to see the campus. Hashiro Oishi, excellent freestyler. He was pivotal in setting up the Penn State Wrestling Club, the technique part of it. And not so much Rich Lorenzo yet. But, I kind of knew that I was going to go there. That was after seeing that campus and seeing what those coaches were like. It really, it was the other places I visited were more like, okay, I just want to make sure that I'm not missing something here. So get to Penn State and have all this great coaching just to move you along, and you're working hard every day. The first practice, they talked about academics. They talked about doing things right, not cutting corners, how we don't cheat at things. The second practice, and I thought, well, that's the first practice speech, right? Second practice, same message. Third practice, so that went on for 5 years with a redshirt year. So for those guys, teaching wrestling was teaching the fundamentals. They used it as a platform to teach the fundamentals of what everyone needs to be successful in life and reach their God-given potential. And probably looking more out toward how someone's going to turn out as an adult rather than their fifth year in college where they're going to play. So I really appreciated that. And it was just a matter of just working every day under that umbrella to get there.
You grew up in Allentown, Pennsylvania, grew up a Lehigh fan. How did Penn State lure you away from being at Lehigh?
Lehigh, tremendous school. Watched them on TV every Sunday, as well as other, the teams they were competing against. In some ways, kind of learned quite a bit about wrestling just watching that, I think. And had an excellent coach. Everything was just perfect about Lehigh, but it was right next to home, and like a lot of teenagers, I wanted a little distance there. So that I looked at Lehigh, I looked at the Naval Academy, and they said we get up at 5 in the morning or something like that. I said, that's out, I just wasn't mature enough to have an appreciation for those hours back then. And so Penn State was a pretty easy choice. They were the rising star, and I went for it.
Now you're a pilot for United, and you talk about a profession that's larger than life. You make international trips. Just thinking about flying overseas and you being the pilot, is there a stress that comes with that when you have to lead a plane, when you have passengers on it? And is there natural stress, or are you over that? I'm just fascinated by that.
Yeah, there a little bit. It's I think it's the kind of thing that what reduces that stress is getting ready for it. Like anything in life, if you put in the prep work and you go, well, I'm as ready as I can be, and that knocks the stress down. And then the 4 pillars of sleep, exercise, stress reduction, diet. Starting with those 4. I think whatever we're trying to do in life, whether it's an athletic goal or to be the best we can be in our profession, it starts with that foundation. If that foundation is strong, we're going to have much more potential in those other endeavors. And so when you think about it, the way you kind of described it, this big long haul flight, if you look at it that way, it is kind of like just the way you described it is kind of overwhelming. But like anything that's difficult, it gets broken down into small chunks, and then it's more digestible, And when you guys are showing up at the airport, we're doing flight planning. We're combing through all those details. Going to Asia, there's 4 of us, 4 people looking at it, a dispatcher looking at it, a lot of eyes on the same thing to catch any errors or any anomalies that we need to keep in mind. And it's it's pretty interesting stuff. And then en route, we have bunks on board. These Asia would be a 16-hour flight to say Hong Kong or Beijing, a little bit less for Beijing, Tokyo, about 14. And we're going right over the North Pole, or just a little offset from it. Right over the North Pole, your compass doesn't know which way north is, it kind of moves around. So anyway, we're always just a little bit left or right of it. And we alternate breaks so that ideally by the time we get there, we have a nice rest in the crew bunk, and we're sharp for the approach and landing.
Sort of like driving, though, there's times where you just kind of cash it in. And I know that when you take a long trip across the country or whatever, you just kind of lock in. Do you ever find yourself just getting a little complacent and just letting it go on cruise control?
Oh yeah, well that's the battle is, because it's hours of not a whole lot. Once you're up at cruise altitude, there's not much going on. So it's easy to get lulled into that and feel complacent and feel like, oh, I've done this hundreds of times and rarely does something happen. And but our training kind of keeps us ready for that. We have recurrent training, and then what I do is I review all those processes before the flight, all the emergency stuff. I will regularly review that so it's fresh in my mind, and we're just waiting for any of those things to happen. Any kind of emergency, we're trained in them all. It's sort of like wrestling, where you drill these motor skills in, you drill the procedures in, and so that if an engine fails or something like that, there's maybe a 2-second startle reaction. We all have that, whether we want to have it or not. That's where you just kind of say, well, what just happened here, and then your mind starts working. So the better trained we are, the quicker that occurs, where our mind kicks in, our training kicks in, and we're right on to following a procedure to correct the situation and get the airplane safely to maybe an alternate airport in that case.
What can you tell us about turbulence? When you hit that, it's always bumpy and passengers get a little bit nervous. Is that anything to be worried about at all?
Yeah, it is actually. We have a fair number of turbulence injuries every year. It's usually from someone who's seated but doesn't have their seatbelt fastened. And there's enough G-force there with a lot of the turbulence to really drive somebody into the ceiling. So I mean, it can be deadly. Sorry for that graphic presentation, but it's probably worth knowing that. It's sort of a complacency problem with the passengers, actually. Well, it feels smooth, I don't need my seatbelt on, until you do, and then it's too late. There's no getting it on after the big jolt. And sometimes, we've gotten a lot better at predicting those, and we steer well clear of any kind of weather system that would tend to generate them as much as we can. Now, when you get closer to the airport, though, sometimes you have to skirt around, say, a thunderstorm in fairly close proximity to it, where you're going to get some turbulence off of it. So, and then a lot of the turbulence we feel is at lower levels, just from heating of the ground from the sun, and it forms thermals, and it's just a kind of a bubbly atmosphere, and you feel that in the climb out. And then once you get up to cruise altitude, it's well past.
When you have a 16-hour flight, as we relate it to driving, you can make pit stops, you can stretch your legs, you can walk around a little bit, I'm sure, in a plane. But is there a sense of relief once you touch down, your 16-hour flight, everyone's safe? Is that overcoming some sort of a trauma every time? I'm just interested in how that feels once you touch down and everyone's safe.
No, it's a complete team effort. We're trained to work together. We're trained to work together in a synergistic way, they call it. So instead of 1 + 1 equals the value of 2 pilots, ideally we can get to 1 + 1 equals the value of 3 if we're working together as well as we can. And so, in that longer flight, it would be 4 pilots. I don't know if you'd call it a sense of relief, but it's just a strong focus, kind of like you would focus on maybe a wrestling match, actually, kind of similar in that way. It's a peak performance. We treat each and every approach and landing that way. going against that complacency thought, whereas if we approached it kind of nonchalantly, that's when something would probably happen, right? So peak performance, fly it as accurately as we can, stick to procedures as precisely as we can, and put it down right on the spot it needs to be. It's not a job where you can miss the runway by 20 feet and somebody says that's pretty good. It requires that level of precision. And after, we march on in, we do a brief. We talk about what we did, where we can do better. We're trained to be open to feedback, actually solicit feedback. That's how you get better at anything, right? You're coachable, just like wrestling. And we go over that, and then we head to the hotel. We're usually pretty tired by the time we get to the hotel, and then go to bed.
Is there value in your wrestling background and what you do as a pilot?
Yeah, the similarities are kind of that peak performance, like getting ready for a dual meet. There's that feeling when we're doing training events. There's the very similar in terms of the motor skill part, where they're fine motor skills, not gross motor skills, but still the same, where they're etched in. You have that muscle memory, and visualization's used a lot. We use that to enhance that. So something like an emergency procedure, like an engine failure on takeoff, where you lose an engine right before a liftoff, and we're going to continue because there's not enough runway left to stop the airplane. We're going to continue onward. I may have practiced that 100 times in a simulator, probably 1,000 times in my mind, and that visualization helps lock it in, so that if it ever happens, it probably won't happen in my career, but if it does, I should be ready for it.
You live in Minnesota now. Are you a Golden Gopher fan, or are you still Penn State?
Well, it depends who I'm talking to. So, the Gophers are a great team. Iowa's a great team. They have a really good year this year. Penn State's always going to be my family. I just can't get away from that. And I've just so many fond memories of that, and with those teammates. We're sort of like a multi-generational family.
Yeah.
When we get back together, we have that common bond, and it's like you never skipped a beat, getting back together with those guys. So, but moreover, a fan of wrestling.
How tough was it to have that 2020 NCAA Championships canceled and know that was in your backyard? You wouldn't even have to get a hotel.
Well, yeah, that's correct. And the goal was to keep ex-teammates out of the house. And my home didn't become a hotel. It was really different in that the NCAA was going with that big. That's not even an arena, that's a stadium. And they were looking at some huge numbers to fill it. And I know there was some talk about, well, that's too far away. Well, it's in an arena, it's almost too far away to see small detail anyway. So you end up watching on the screen. And a lot of what's enticing about the NCAA is just being with your people, being with all your friends again. So I was really excited about it for that, and the fundraiser that was about to take place. And but what do you do? I mean, I think they made a good decision in canceling it for sure.
When's the last time you broke out your wrestling skills?
Well, I coach from. I put wrestling aside for a little bit, and then I got back to coaching. It started with my son. He was maybe he's 20 now. He'll be 21 soon. But he's about 6 years old, and the kid's running around the house, and you go, we need to get him some activity here. And so take him to wrestling practice, and I'm sitting against the wall thinking, I really should get involved here. I should do something, to help this program. And started coaching, and and then you kind of get back to your wrestling mentality, whereas, well, if I'm going to coach, I'm going to do this as well as I can. And well as I can means bringing a lot of people on board, actually, knowing that there's a lot of jobs that I can't do and the goal would be to bring as many people into our tent as possible, figure out what they're good at, and then let them go to work. And if we could do that, we could expand that workforce. We can do the accounting a little bit better. We can have a little bit better, cleaner mats. We can maybe have a few extra technicians to help those younger kids come along. So, you're kind of building an enterprise, really. And through that, started to realize how much the coaches that I had put into me and us, and really gained an appreciation for it, so that it felt like, well, I have this debt that I have to repay. The duration of coaching, I felt like I was obligated to repay that, and I did. And same with I made it my goal to repay all my scholarship money too, to give that to not the university, but for the kids for camp scholarships and so forth. And just to improve the program, I just donated everything back because I felt like I owed it. And if that's what makes you wealthy right there. It's not money, it's the ability to give back. So I feel just really fortunate to have had those experiences, learn from it, and be able to pass that on. And that's a good feeling.
What kind of moves would you show Bo Nickel? You're a 190 pounder. He was 174 to 197. What kind of stuff would you show him?
I could probably show him how to eat donuts. I don't think I'd show Bo Nickel a lot. But it's funny that you asked that, because he does step on people's feet, which is something that I did. And I always hoped that was a move that would catch on, and no one else did that. It never caught on, really. Just a couple people here and there, like Tim Flynn and Jim Martin actually used to do it a little bit, and then Bo Nickel comes along and he's using it. It's not his first move, but I've seen him use it a couple times. It's pretty cool to watch that. So,
well, I appreciate this time, Andy. My hope and my goal is that I'm on a United flight and you're the pilot. That would be awesome.
Yeah, we'll bring you up, give you a tour, and make sure they treat you well. They always do, but we'll make sure of that. So I hope to see you on board.